This episode of Into the Music is brought to you by Coda Music. It's a great way to discover new music and listen to all of your favorite artists for free. The link is in the description. In today's episode we're going to explore Arctic Monkeys. Arctic Monkeys arrived in 2005 with a blast. Assisted by rave reviews and online word of mouth, they were one of the first bands to benefit from the tangled web of social media. The band quickly became a sensation in the United Kingdom, where they were seen as the heir apparent to the throne left vacant by Oasis, or perhaps the Libertines. Their 2006 debut Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not briefly grabbed the title of fastest selling album in British history. What set the group apart was Alex Turner, a singer-slash-songwriter with a biting wit and grasp of English vernacular not dissimilar to Paul Weller, the godfather of modern British rock. While that particular style often fails to translate to a worldwide audience, Arctic Monkeys broke this tradition, cracking the American market not by sacrificing Turner's trademark storytelling but by beefing up their guitars, sometimes in association with Josh Homme of Queens of the Stone Age. Eventually, Arctic Monkeys laced in some of the loose lounge aspects of Turner's swinging side project The Last Shadow Puppets, but by that point, the band were a staple throughout the world, a respected, adventurous, and successful group who could easily be called Britain's biggest band of the early 21st century. Alex Turner and guitarist Jamie Cook began their music careers in 2001, when the friends both received guitars for Christmas. 2 years later, they began performing shows around their native Sheffield with drummer Matt Helders and bassist Andy Nicholson, two fellow students at Stocksbridge High School. A series of demo recordings followed. An Arctic Monkeys audience swelled as fans circulated those recordings via the internet. The musicians soon found themselves at the center of a growing media circus, with such outlets as BBC Radio examining the band's music and mounting hype. By distributing their homemade material on the internet, Arctic Monkeys were able to build a sizable fan base without the help of a record label, effectively circumventing the usual road to superstardom. They continue to buck tradition by signing with Domino Records in 2005, eschewing a major label's budget for Domino's DIY cred and hip roster, which also included Franz Ferdinand, a touchstone for the band's sound. The smart moves paid off as Arctic Monkeys' first two singles, I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor and When the Sun Goes Down, both topped the UK charts. Critical reception was similarly favorable, but few could have predicted the whirlwind success of the band's debut album, which ousted Oasis definitely maybe as the fastest selling debut in British history, a record that was broken 1 year later by Leona Lewis' Spirit. Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not sold 363,735 copies during its first week alone, transforming Arctic Monkeys from underground stars into mainstream figures. Arctic Monkeys' debut sold approximately 300,000 total copies in America, enough to warrant more media coverage, but notably less than the album's British sales during its first week alone. Nevertheless, their success continued as they released a spring EP, Who the Fuck Are Arctic Monkeys, and prepared for a stateside tour. Temporary bassist Nick O'Malley was brought aboard for the band's American shows, while a fatigued Nicholson stayed at home. Nicholson then announced his official departure when the band returned home in June 2006, and O'Malley remained with Arctic Monkeys as a permanent member. That fall, the guys received the 2006 Mercury Prize and donated the accompanying money to an undisclosed charity. Additional accolades included Best British Breakthrough Act at the Brit Awards and Best New Band at the NME Awards. NME also made a bold assertion by deeming the band's debut one of the top 5 British albums ever released. Released in April 2007, Favorite Worst Nightmare updated Arctic Monkeys' sound with louder instruments and faster tempos. The bandmates had recorded the sophomore album quickly, wishing to return to the road as soon as possible, and the speedy turnaround between records helped maintain the band's popularity at home. Favorite Worst Nightmare sold 85,000 copies during its first day of release, and all 12 tracks entered the top 200 of the UK singles charts. As Alex Turner briefly turned his attention to a side project, The Last Shadow Puppets, Arctic Monkeys received another Mercury Prize nomination and took home 2 titles at the 2008 Brit Awards. Recording sessions for a third album commenced in early 2008 and lasted throughout the year, with producers James Ford, who previously worked with Turner on the Last Shadow Puppets album, and Josh Homme, frontman of Queens of the Stone Age, adding some newfound heft to the band's sound. Meanwhile, Arctic Monkeys released a concert album entitled At the Apollo, with accompanying video footage captured on 35mm film, before unveiling Humbug in August 2009. Humbug went platinum in the UK but failed to produce a top 10 hit, with Crying Lightning peaking at number 12 and Cornerstone topping out at 94. The band hit the road that February, kicking off a multi-leg tour that ran through the rest of the year. After playing another handful of shows in early 2010, the guys took a short hiatus before reconvening with James Ford for their fourth album. Sessions began that fall, and the resulting Suck It and See arrived in spring 2011. Meanwhile, Turner also wrote music for a Richard Ayoade film, Submarine, whose soundtrack doubled as the frontman's first solo release. In February 2012, Arctic Monkeys released a song entitled Are You Mine? On their YouTube channel, which indicated that a new album was on the way. A few months later, the band played at the London Summer Olympics opening ceremony, performing I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor and the Beatles Come Together, but it wasn't until the summer of 2013 that a new album was to be revealed. Entitled AM, the fifth album was released in September, a few months after a triumphant headlining performance at Glastonbury 2013, which was opened with the new song Do I Wanna Know? Following the supporting tour for AM, the band entered an extended hiatus, during which time the individual members pursued solo projects. Arctic Monkeys resurfaced in April of 2018 with the loungy Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, a softer affair than their previous albums. Later that year the band issued the TBH and C B-side Anyways as a single.